Now, earlier on, you heard a vigorous discussion about the pros and cons of lowering the voting age so that 16 and 17-year-olds can help choose our MPs. You might have heard some teenagers telling our political correspondent, Aggie Chambray, they were worried they did not know enough about politics and they needed more education. Well, somebody who agrees with that is Tony Blair's former Director of Communications and now podcaster, Alastair Campbell. He's been campaigning for younger teenagers to get the vote. But does he agree they also need more political education?
I think this decision will energise debate. The only thing I would say, I've been campaigning for a long time on this, but I think it's got to be done alongside genuine political education. And by that, I don't mean vote Labour, vote Tory, vote anything else. I mean really explaining to people why politics matters, how it works, how you can have an influence over it. So I'm very excited about this. I think it's a risk for all sorts of reasons for the Labour Party and the Labour government, but I think I'm very, very pleased that they've got on with it.
I'm really interested in what you say about, where young people are, because we're a democracy, we're a well-established democracy, but there's a kind of sense that therefore democracy is somehow in our DNA. It's innate in us. It's just something that we are. And if we don't teach people what it means and how to do it, it will actually disappear.
Well, listen, I have written books about this because I wrote a book a while back where I quoted John Major very favourably because he wrote a speech called "In Democracy We Trust?" And he was making the point that we should never take it for granted. I really worry that unless we do generate a greater sense of faith in our politics and our political leaders, that we are at risk of democracy just eroding and people suddenly thinking. And the reason why I said that this getting younger people engaged is a risk as well as, I think, a massive opportunity. The decile of the population that is most attracted to authoritarianism around the world is not the old, it's the young. It's young men in particular. So I think we should not think, Labour should definitely not think, well, this is a way of getting, this is the attack, this is Labour trying to get lots of young people who are generally on the left. I think this is a massive risk for all of the parties, but it's a massive opportunity to re-energise our politics, and that's why I think it's so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel Farage, for instance, more than 1 million TikTok followers at the moment, massively popular among young men in particular. And on the other side of the fence, frankly, you see all the Gaza flags and the placards, and Jeremy Corbyn should expect to do very well out of this as well. It's not just that it's a risk. Labour will be handing a bit of extra boost to some of its natural enemies.
Well, it depends how they take it on. You see, I don't accept that Nigel Farage is massively popular amongst the young. He's massively well known amongst the young. He has more TikTok followers than all other Westminster MPs combined. So that is a message to all the other parties: get engaged, get involved on the channels and the networks that young people engage with. But I actually think this is if I was a Labour MP, in fact, if I was the candidate of any party now, I would be thinking, okay, not just because of young people, but I would now be putting into every single week of the calendar at least one school visit. To go into and genuinely engage with young people. I think they'll find lots of energy, they'll find lots of ideas, they'll find lots of volunteers. And so, I agree with you. Gaza, there's no doubt, one of the reasons the Labour government, I think, is, pretty low in the polls is because of young people's attitudes to the Labour stance on Gaza. Well, that's something you've got to confront, and you've got to go and engage and argue about it. So, look, there is no doubt this is a risk, but I really think it's a good thing for the country, it's a good thing for democracy, and I'm very glad that it's happened.
One more aspect of this is working and living online. I mean, the number of very, very compelling sort of attack ads and little films that appear in people's pockets. Do you think that not just MPs, but actually the government itself has got to communicate in a different way? The days when you were communications boss, the world has changed, and the idea that if Keir Starmer gets an approving mention on the front page of the Daily Express, brackets, read by nobody, brackets, and they've got all these press officers, but they've got very, very few, digitally experienced people who can make the attack ads and make the material online for TikTok and Instagram and the rest of it. They surely have to wise up.
They do. I mean, I don't think any of the parties really do social media very well. And I would include Nigel Farage in that. I mean, I think I was absolutely cheering Ed Davey yesterday when he was calling out the BBC and other parts of the media. Nigel Farage gets a lot of coverage from the mainstream media, which he then clips up and taps up and exploits for his social media operation. I completely agree with you. I think this, again, is why it's such an opportunity, because, frankly, they should be reviewing their communication strategy. It's far too focused on the so-called lobby. It's far too focused on traditional outlets that have been used in that way for years and years and years. Far more important now is how do you package your communication in a way that the messaging is hitting every single target that you need to get to.
Yeah.
And so I agree, and every MP should be doing it, and every minister should be doing it. And by the way, where you're also right is they shouldn't be spending all their time on it. Where I would have had a press officer working on the regions and a press officer working on foreign affairs and so on. Now every minister's got to have a couple of people whose job is to think for them about engagement on the channels that young people use. And as you said, we're a democracy. That is part of what a democracy is.
And final aspect of all of this, I think we can probably also both agree that in many ways our political culture is skewed to the old and the prosperous. Homeowners, pensioners, the triple lock and all of that. And we both know that's partly because older people are likelier to vote and they have disproportionate political clout. So is it possible to kind of imagine forward into a situation where far more young people, far more teenagers are engaging and are voting, and think about what that might do to our politics?
Well, the short answer is I hope so. I hope so. And I think if that does happen, it'll be good for our politics. I do think our politics is far too skewed to the elderly. If you look at the last campaign, what was Rishi Sunak's first big speech about? The triple lock on pensions. What did Labour do in response to that? They kind of matched them on pensions. Now, pensions are very, very important, as the Labour government has found out since trying to change the winter fuel allowance. But I would say that the reason why I think this is good for politics is that a lot of the challenges that we're facing, they are particularly disproportionately about the young. It is housing, it is educational inequality, it is climate change, it is the sort of the sense of this generation not being able to take for granted, the younger generation, that they're going to be better off than their parents. That's the first time in our lifetime that has happened, and that's what's got to be addressed. And I think that, look, I actually wrote a couple of books last year specifically for schools about politics, one for primary schools and one for secondary schools. So I've been into so many schools in the last year or so, and honestly, I cannot tell you, I've never been into a senior school without coming out energized by the sense of thinking, engagement. And of course you get people saying the same as adults do. They're all the same. I can't be bothered. It's boring. I want to just go and do whatever I do. But I promise you, I never leave a school without thinking these kids have got more understanding of what we need to do to change the country than a lot of adults, and frankly, than a lot of MPs.
Well, I can't imagine a better case for lowering the voting age to 16. Alastair Campbell, great to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed.